actually switching to bi-weekly.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's great.
Trust you, stay, yeah, stay. And through the dark and cold, I know it's all good, 'cause now I'm the best of myself.
Alice, can you write me a private message in case I want to chat with you privately? Just have like start a thread. Thank you.
Ooh, yeah.
Stumble in the dark to learn how to see what you already saw. You're the one to blame for the fact that I can reach for the best of myself. Still wonder how, yeah, you always make it right. And maybe it's all chance, but either way, you showed me how to reach for the best of myself. It's all good when you show the way, yeah. 'Cause even if I fall, ooh, I trust you'll stay, yeah, stay. And through the dark and cold, I know it's all good, 'cause now I'm the best of myself. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I have tried so hard, stumbling in the dark, to learn how to see what you already saw. You're the one to blame for the fact that I can reach for the best of myself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexandra. I am your humble webinar moderator for today. Today's session is called AI Tools Collision, hosted by Alan Martinez, who I'm going to introduce momentarily. But before we begin, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping with everybody. For anyone who maybe is not already a member of Chief AI Officer who is here today, please feel free to follow the link that I'll provide at the end of the session, and also momentarily to join. And otherwise, please feel free, if you are a Chief AI Officer, to spread the love to everybody else. In regards to this particular webinar, Alan has just asked that I'm going to collect everybody's questions from the chat throughout the course of the presentation, and there will be a dedicated question and answer session at the end where I will make sure that all the questions that were not possibly answered throughout the session will be able to be addressed one at a time as they're incoming. In that particular part of the session, I can read off the questions that were in the chat, and if you have any follow-up based on Alan's responses, please feel free to either keep responding in the chat if that's what's most comfortable for you, or you're more than welcome to come off mic at that time. But we do ask that any questions throughout the session, please just throw them into the chat. I promise I will indicate that I have received and recorded that question, and it will be answered in the order that it is received. And Otherwise, please let me know if there's any technical troubleshooting. At the end of this session, we have a recommended but not required quick feedback survey, which always helps us improve everything that we can offer with this wonderful community and organization. And also, again, I'll be dropping in the link to share the community with anyone who is not yet part of the community, or anyone who would like to share the community with others who may benefit from this wonderful experience. With that, I would like to introduce Alan Martinez of Noble Digital, who is going to give us a webinar presentation today called AI Tools Collision, the Hidden Failure Mode Nobody is Pricing In. Welcome, Alan. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me, Alex. And thanks to the Chief AI Officer Group for hosting me. And if you came in off my link, this is a great group of sharp people that understand where AI is going. So my name is Alan Martinez, and today we're going to talk about tool collisions with AI. Some of those who filled out the survey, thank you very much. 80% of those who filled it out told me that you've already seen two AI tools contradict each other. You already know this is happening. The shadow ledger is just the name of the cost of those contradictions you have not discovered yet. But let me be clear about who I am and why I'm speaking on this. I'm here to build the AI. I'm not here to build the AI. I'm not a developer. I'm not a prompt engineer. And I'm not here to sell you software or convince you that one AI platform is better than the other. I'm here to make sure that your AI does not destroy what took you years and a lot of customer trust to build, which is your brand. And my mission is to help eliminate the confusion around AI implementation and AI governance. So I want to start with a story about an afternoon that cost one company $35,000 in just 48 hours. And not because their AI was broke, because it worked exactly as it was designed. A high-performing operator named Alex shipped a refund bot over a weekend. She did not ask for permission because the AI Center of Excellence takes 4 months to approve anything. So out of her frustration, she went ahead and did her own thing. And she knew they would say, we'll revisit in Q3. So anyway, she built her own bot. Customers got answers in seconds, and the support tickets actually dropped, and she looked like a hero. But then 6 weeks later, a VP from enterprise sales called the CEO directly, and he said, we need to talk today. And Alex's largest account, a $200,000 annual renewed client, had received 3 contradictory messages in just 7 days. So marketing automation promised white glove onboarding. Then the sales assistant offered her a discount on the self-service tier. And then Alex refund bot flagged the account for churn and offered a win-back credit that nobody asked for. So there's 3 systems, 3 promises, 1 customer, and 0 coordination. Now, zoom out. Imagine those 3 bots were sold by 3 different agencies, each doing excellent work in their own lane, right? And I'm talking to you guys that are selling these services to clients. When the client gets 3 contradictory promises, they do not blame the model. They blame the people who sold it because they don't understand. And the retainer dies before anyone figures out whose fault it is. So the VP of sales personally offered a custom package that nobody in finance approved, a $35,000 credit, upgraded tier, dedicated account manager for a year, and they saved the deal, but they paid $35,000 to paper over a coordination problem that could happen again tomorrow. Now, why don't you do me a favor and use the reactions and give me a thumbs up or anything if you've experienced this before. Or Alex, would you say number 1 for yes, 2 for no in the chat?
That is correct.
I'm expecting to see not every one of you. Yeah, keep filling up the chat. Not every one of you is going to know what this is if you have not at least built a few workflows, because one workflow by itself, not touching any other data, may not have this problem, and I'll get to that in a second. So a few of you, yes, you know what you're talking about. Yes, and some no. Okay. So for the ones that said no or are silently thinking no, you'll understand where this is all going very soon, because you will experience it sooner or later. Now, I want to ask you something. If your internal AI or your client's AI feels broken, paranoid, or useless right now, raise your hand or give me a thumbs up in the chat. Or if you're just getting by, or if they turned it off. Anybody? A lot of 2s. Okay, so a lot of people are saying no, they haven't experienced this. So this is going to be new for them. And when you start to have, again, more interactions, you'll see the difference. So just a quick context on why I see the problem the way I do. I started building with ChatGPT 3, yes, that one, back in 2020. I built a marketing analysis tool and leveraged GPT's API, which increased new client launches. And as you can imagine, I'm no stranger to leveraging AI, but I've done this through my agency, Noble Digital. I learned strategy from a razorfish strategist, and that helped me scale companies of all sizes, from startups to regulated enterprise companies. And I helped produce the largest exit in Shark Tank history after pulling it out of a downward spiral. And I got them to $100 million in revenue in 18 months and then a $300 exit. So you'll see I work with a lot of regulated industries. I helped SEC regulated Fundrise when they were small. I've helped Telesign reduce their sales cycle to 90 days and from 1 year to 90 days, and even Fortune 500s and New Balance with their own product launches as well. And overall, I've really focused a lot on customer acquisition, and I still do that work. But before that, my background, I was a TV commercial director and producer for about 10 years. And I had about $25 billion of media spend behind all my work. And I helped blue chip brands turn brand equity into operational market cap growth, right? And that's how I was able to help the Shark Tank out, because I thought, well, can I apply these things to a small business, or is this only work for enterprise? And it turns out a lot of times what an enterprise, what a small company needs is the same thing that an enterprise needs. So before I got into all that, even before that, I got pulled into production to begin with when I was hired by Quentin Tarantino and Lawrence Bender at A Band Apart. And that's where I started my career as a TV commercial director. So I was hired right out of design school. And while I was in design school, I learned from Linda. You may have heard of lynda.com. She sold her company for $1.5 billion to LinkedIn. And I wish I had done the same thing, but I'm working on it. Okay. But here's what I realized about a year ago. All the answers to AI governance are already out there, but they're in bits and pieces scattered across compliance frameworks, academic research, enterprise playbooks, and hard lessons from companies that learned the expensive way. And I didn't see anybody taking the time to pull them all together into one cohesive architecture. So I spent the last year doing exactly that. And I mapped this out, first principles logic of how AI decision governance actually has to work, from the leadership rules all the way down to the enforcement layer. And I wrote it down and I published it in a book called The Brand Experience AI Operating System. And I'll share a link or a scan code at the end of this for that. And also a free peek into chapter 1 if you want to check it out. But every piece of software you have ever used was built this way. Someone had to sit down and think through the logic first, painstakingly, before an engineer wrote a single line of code. And that is the work. So my work sits at the intersection of three things that almost never get put in the same room: leadership intent, legal exposure, and AI behavior. So my job is to sit down with your CMO, your general counsel, your head of support, or your CISO and extract the rules they have not been able to agree on yet and compress those rules into decision architecture the machine can actually enforce. Thanks for the link, Alex. She put the link in the book, but I'm going to give you a link for the free chapter as well. So why do I call it the Brand Experience AI Operating System? I think about AI governance the same way I think about brand architecture, because it's exactly what it is. It's before the tools, before vendors, before building anything. The job is to find the gap between what leadership intends and what the machine actually does. And then you design after that, the infrastructure that closes it, right? And if you don't understand maybe BX, I think everyone understands UX, user experience, right? Is this easy to use? Customer experience, is the journey pleasant? Do I want to do business with these people? Well, BX is the layer above both of those, right? And so even if your UX and CX, if you think of them as rooms in a house, each can be perfect, right? The BX is the architecture of the house, but if the foundation is crooked, it doesn't matter how nice the kitchen looks, right? You still have a crooked offset kitchen. And this is what happens when your CX team optimizes the journey, but your AI chatbot is making a different promise from your sales team. So each room is fine individually, locally, but the house is contradicting itself. And you'll notice how the new Ring AIX is the new experience layer. And if that is not governed, it's freelancing in your brand's name. And that's the layer that nobody is governing, and that's what we're here to fix. So that's why I call it the Brand Experience AI Operating System. And before I even dive into this, for people that are, especially because I see a lot of twos in the answers, if you're just starting to tether your first workflow or building an entire AI stack from scratch, or trying to govern 15 tools later, I built this free diagnostic tool called the Workflow Finder. It takes literally a minute or two. You just answer a few questions about a workflow, and it's kind of a calculator to kind of zero in on what you want to start with, and it goes across different departments. So you have like just a minute or two to identify the single highest workflow your client should govern first. All right, moving on. So All this I'm going to speak about today is about brand advantage, okay? Which is about ROI. It's high retention rates. It's about maximizing customer experience. And if you think like 25 years ago, website design was a disaster. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but developers were building sites that technically work and were impossible to navigate. And it took years for the industry to realize that design thinking had to come before the build. And so we're in this exact same situation now with AI. And most organizations are handling AI. They're handing AI to the most technical person in the group and asking them to figure it out. So that is how you get a system that works technically but destroys trust operationally. So my job is to prevent that by designing the decision architecture before engineers start guessing. And three things you'll walk away with today. First is exactly where your current AI setup is heading towards a collision and what that collision will cost when it surfaces. Second is why your enforcement gate or the one you're about to buy is an empty engine without the leadership logic that powers it. And then third, what the full architecture looks like and what the concrete first step is. So I'll have the QR code at the end of this talk that takes you to the shadow ledger assessment. But before we get into collisions, I want to name what most organizations are sitting on right now without realizing it. You have your official books, revenue, expenses, assets, all that. And then you have a second set of books nobody's tracking, which is untracked promises made by chatbots, undocumented decisions made by AI tools, inconsistent brand expressions across a dozen different systems. Now, I think some of you might agree to that and give me a thumbs up in the chat, or a number one if it's a yes. I call this the shadow ledger. It behaves like a second set of books, except accounting is not tracking it. Yes, you're feeling it. Good. Nate, Steve, yep. Every refund offered outside of policy, every delivery date a bot committed to without checking inventory, every claim denied in 1.2 seconds without reviewing the case. And by the way, none of that is evil. All of it is invisible. You only notice it when the numbers stop adding up and nobody can show why. So the shadow ledger exists in every organization running ungoverned AI. So today I'm going to show you how to make it visible. And this means that if one of your clients turned off AI because of the collisions or because they couldn't figure it out, this will help them figure it out. And I also want to add some more data that Workday just published, 3,200 companies in January of this year. 40% of the time, 40% of the time saved through AI is lost through rework. So for every 10 hours AI saves you, there's now nearly 4 hours going to fix the output. That's 1.5 weeks per employee per year. And the dollar cost, according to Gartner's research, was about $200,000 to $400,000 a year. And it never shows up on a dashboard. It shows up as burnout. And I see that tax about to compound because every new agent you add adds multiple collision points, okay? And some of you in this room are managing 13 or more tools. I know from the surveys. The math on that is not linear. That is over 70 potential collision points. If you do not have a control plane, you do not have a tech problem. You have a compliance time bomb. And I want to give you credit before I challenge you. And I'm speaking to the consultants. I know there's owner operators in the room too, but I'm going to speak to the consultants for a second. If you have shipped an AI pilot, you've done something real. You have got the model working. You connected it to your data. You showed leadership a demo, and the room got excited, and you did the hard thing. The problem is not that you shipped the pilot. The problem is that what happens when you ship the second one. The first pilot succeeded for one specific reason that almost no one talks about. It succeeded in isolation, clean data, defined scope, one team, one workflow. It had one job to do. It did not have to share anything with anyone in most cases. So if you're an operator, the second pilot creates an internal contradiction. If you're an agency owner or consultant deploying AI workflows for clients, the second pilot is where the churn begins. So your client does not experience it as a coordination problem. They experience it as a broken delivery, and they blame you or fire you for it. So I need every builder in this room to hear this clearly. You make money when workflows ship, right? But you lose money when the second or third or fourth workflow contradicts the first, and the client does not blame the model. And you might force them to sign a contract that protects you from the issue, but either way, they blame the people who sold it because they've kind of been cornered into this. So what I'm describing is not a cost center. This is the layer that makes your second, third, and fourth workflow safe to sell. And this is how you protect the revenue you already earned and expand the scope of what you can sell next. So a collision is two AIs doing the right thing locally but creating the wrong global outcome. And both bots did exactly what they're programmed to do. Both were technically correct, but inside their own workflow. So neither one was broken, neither one hallucinated, and neither one failed. But together they created a disaster that your team is now cleaning up, or you're about to clean up later this year when you start to experience this, or your client is dealing with this. So here's the math: two AI tools create one collision point, but 5 tools create 10. Past a dozen agents running across marketing, sales, support, finance, all that, it starts to become structurally unstable. And not because your people are incompetent, because the quadratic math works against everyone. And you'll see, you'll never scale AI unless you have a system to control it. And before I show you the deeper problems and the solutions, I want to show you where this leads, because you need a destination in your mind. So think of AI maturity in 3 stages. Stage A is where most organizations live right now, whether they realize it or not. Tool chaos, shadow AI everywhere, about to explode if it hasn't exploded already. Someone buys a tool, it breaks something, someone patches it, repeat. The cleanup costs compound in the background and nobody's measuring them. The next stage is control. Collisions are detected and prevented before they reach customers. And my talk is really trying to get us from stage A to stage B, okay? Leadership has signed an operating logic that the machines can actually enforce. The dashboard is green. Green means boring. Boring is the goal, right? And then after that, this is where we're doing all this work. This is all table stakes, by the way. All this is so we can get to the brand advantage, which is stage C. And this is where it gets really compelling. You have compounding intelligence. You have predictive intelligence. The system starts predicting problems before customers feel them. It catches drift. It learns from every governed decision. The cleanup budget collapses. Money that was going to patches and legal reviews now gets redeployed to growth. The board stops asking about risk and starts asking about acceleration. So this is the promised land. You hold that destination in your mind as we look at the path. So let's talk about a few case studies here. Knight Capital Group in 2012, this is before AI, but they had a similar problem with collisions. They deployed an update to 8 servers. 7 got the new code, 1 did not. The 8th server ran old test logic, and 45 minutes later, $440 million were lost. The firm ceased to exist overnight. The failure was not the absence of any coordination layer the failure was the absence of any coordination layer watching aggregate behavior. At Air Canada deployed a customer service chatbot. A grieving passenger asked about bereavement fares. The chatbot confidently explained a refund policy that did not exist at all. So Air Canada argued that the chatbot was a separate legal entity. The legal tribunal rejected that completely, and they were fully liable for refunding that customer. And by the way, this just points into regulations that are coming. California, Colorado, and other states are now following suit. We're going to start seeing regulations. This current administration in the federal level is not making a big deal about the AI regulations, but state by state are starting to enforce it. So be aware of that. A Chevy dealership chatbot agreed to sell a $76,000 Tahoe for $1 because nobody specified what it was allowed to promise. All right, and they received millions of Twitter likes and laughs and embarrassment. Right, so you have financial collapse, you have brand liability, and you have legal exposure. 3 industries, same root problem, no decision architecture, no executable rules, and no receipts. So there are 3 ways you can find a collision. The best way is you surface the decision architecture gaps in a strategy session before anything is built. The cost, an afternoon and some comfortable conversations. They get a little rough, but by the way, I've been doing brand strategy for over a decade. This is no different. When I'm talking about where do you want to go with your company in a brand strategy, you'll be surprised how out of sync sometimes leadership is, not in a bad way, but because they haven't sat and talked about it. It's the same thing here. It's a very similar process. So the acceptable way after that is, your QA team catches it during testing, and the cost, maybe a sprint of rework, maybe 2, right? The expensive way is a customer finds it. And for agency owners in this room, a customer found collision does not cost, it doesn't just cost remediation time, it costs the retainer sometimes, the referral, and the next sale. So research going back 30 years shows that catching a requirement error after launch costs up to 1,500 times more than catching it in the room. And that multiplier applies directly to AI governance. So most people treat AI like a product, like a really smart calculator. You feed inputs and you get outputs. That mental model is wrong. AI is not a product. AI is a user. And if you think about what that means, it has access to your files, right? Look at what's going on right now with open. Well, they changed the name so many times. I have to OpenClaw to think about it. It can read your customers' records. It sends emails on your behalf. It talks to your customers. It makes decisions that affect your brand every day. So the problem here is that it hasn't received any compliance training. In many cases, it has a master key to the database. What is the governance process for this employee? In most organizations, the answer is we've uploaded the policy handbook. And that is not governance. That is an orientation packet. So we've seen how well employees follow orientation packets, have we not, folks, right? So I'm making a joke, but without enforcement, accountability, or consequences, you're gonna have a lot of problems. So here's what happens when organizations realize the PDF policy is not enough. Because the AI cannot be fully trusted, teams build a human review step. Someone reads every draft before it shifts, or they all have to do that, knowledge workers, right? Someone approves every output before the customer sees it. And raise your hand if your team or your client's team is currently reading AI outputs before they go out. Put a 1 if they are doing that. 1, anybody? Nobody? I just spoke to, I don't mention his name. He's in the group, and he's a very busy person, and that's what's going on sometimes, and that's also a way how he can stay out of legal problems. But I think that problem is what needs to be solved, because okay, there we go. Nothing goes out without a human in the loop. There you go, and that's not going to scale. That human in the loop is not going to scale. You bought AI to scale, to do more with less, to respond to any hour, right? And then you stuck a human in the critical path of every single output. If you are selling AI workflows to clients, sit with what this means for your business model. You're selling them automation, but delivering a massive new administrative burden. You're forcing the client's team to take responsibility for the tech's unpredictable behavior. You've turned their most valuable knowledge workers into AI babysitters, okay? These are the people who know what right and wrong looks like for the brand, but the people whose judgment you're paying a premium for at the same time. So they're spending their days reading the chatbot drafts instead of doing the work they were hired to do. And this is the babysitting tax. And it is quietly destroying the ROI of AI programs everywhere right now. So if you look at the right side of this graphic, this is phase 2. The AI drafts the answer, and enforcement gate intercepts it before it ships. The gate checks it against a centralized rule set. Pass, it ships instantly with a logged evidence receipt. Fail, blocked, revised, and routed to a human reviewer. By the way, this is happening in milliseconds, okay? The human is removed from the critical path entirely. The architecture does not. The architecture does the babysitting at machine speed, and humans own the rules while the machines enforce the rules. And some of you have already figured out that this human loop is not sustainable. You called it IT, you bought a governance platform, you deployed maybe an enforcement gate. That instinct is right. But here's the pattern I keep seeing. Think about the last time you brought a big platform. Has anybody ever used HubSpot, like the full, not the free version, but the full solution? I'm curious. Over the past, yeah, I do. Anybody else? Yep. Okay, a few of you. And for years. Well, a CRM like HubSpot, that's a full, think of this full suite, right? Think about the promise of the sales deck that HubSpot gave you. Streamlined workflows, full visibility, and then think about what you found inside the box. I remember when I did the trial, and what you got was an empty state UI, boxes inside of boxes inside of boxes, 100 configuration options that all required 100 decisions that you hadn't even made yet. The platform wasn't broken. HubSpot is a framework waiting for your logic, okay? AI governance platforms are exactly the same. You can buy an enterprise enforcement gate from IBM, Microsoft, or half a dozen vendors tomorrow. Legitimate, well-engineered products. What I'm saying is software is just the engine. What powers the engine is the extracted logic from your leadership team. And without that logic, you have a gate that either blocks everything or allows everything, and neither is governance. And your best people are not filling tickets to get exceptions approved. They're on their phones. They're using personal GPT. They're cheating. They're adding to the shadow ledger because they're doing this in the dark. And it's like 72% of enterprise AI usage is already happening through personal accounts. So your straitjacket is not stopping AI usage. It's just hiding it, okay? And a quick aside for the CTOs and CISOs watching this, IT governance secures the pipes, right? Decision governance secures pipes. Decision governance is what secures what flows through those pipes. So that's the difference. When your marketing AI makes a promise, the finance will reject the pipes, and the pipes work perfectly. The authentication was correct, but the logs exist. But the problem was not the security. The problem was the decision rights. And right now, some of you are training humans to police those decision rights manually, which does not scale. And how long before those knowledge workers are going to feel good about that role? 6 months, a year? And they're waiting for something to replace that manual process, whether you realize it or not. And that something is decision architecture. So they need both layers, or you end up with a perfectly secure, highly compliant chaos AI. So why does the straitjacket happen? It's a fundamental misalignment of incentives, okay? An engineer's job is to minimize risk. That's their job. The performance review does not include useful AI outputs per month, but it absolutely includes 0 data leaks on my watch, all right? When an engineer is handed an enforcement gate with no, and I don't say no documentation. I know they're being given, like, fill out this form. I'm not talking about like a form that you filled out. I'm talking about a deep session where you bring up actual collision problems and defining acceptable risk. If you don't do that, you're going to see the speed limit go down to a crawl, not because they're being difficult, because no one gave them permission to do anything else. So think about what you actually want. Al, can you mute everybody else right now? I think people have the microphone on.
You.
Thank you. So think about what you actually want. You do not want a straitjacket wrapped so tight that AI cannot move. You want an electric fence, but around an enormous pasture. Why? This gives the AI room to run, room to graze, room to do useful work. AI is actually amazing, but you need to give it a sandbox to play in, and not too tight. And that way you don't have to, because when it's in the straitjacket, you're also going to have to manage it, because it's going to be so lame as an experience that people are not going to enjoy the experience. And so you're not gaining anything by doing that. So the boundaries are absolute, and the consequences for crossing them are immediate. And that's the difference between deterministic governance and a suffocating safety blanket. And I would say engineers advise what the system can safely handle that way, but leadership decides the actual boundaries, because they are accountable for the balance between safety and economic movement, okay? So without that conversation on record in detail, your gate defaults to the tightest possible setting. And this is why you cannot start with IT. You must start with executive logic. IT translates those decisions, but it does not make them. And this is really important. When leadership doesn't set the rules, the result is password blocks, infinite redactions, and bots that refuse to analyze competitors because it might offend them. Safe, compliant, but also useless. So in general, a builder builds, and they are briefed what to build. And this is not a limitation of capacity whatsoever, but builders are incredibly capable, and it's a limitation of their sequence of how you do it. An architect asks the questions that can determine what you should build before anyone touches the tool. So if you imagine you're building a house on a piece of land where there's a mountain view to the west, the first decision is not what plumbing should we install or what faucet sink design do you want. The first decision is, which direction does the house face? Do you like to wake up with the sun beaming on your face? I don't. I like to be in the dark, in the shadows. I don't like to wake up with the sun, right? So I want the view in the afternoon, not in the morning, right? All these kinds of things. These are user experience questions. So I get your CMO, your general counsel, your support director, and CISO in the room, and I extract the tensions that they've been avoiding. I map the places where your workflows are going to contradict each other. I define the risk appetite in plain language, and I document those decision rights, and I produce a signed blueprint. Now, what does it sound like? If you guys have ever done web design, if you've done web design with like a team, you start with what? A front end design, yes? Who's done web design? Type of one, if you've done like a real web design with a big team. Anybody? A lot of ones. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. And by the way, I also add, you probably would never do it without a front end design. Imagine a team of coders saying, "Yeah, you want a website? What do you want? What are they going to ask you? What color? What this? What, you know? How do you?" No, you want it all spec'd out. So now with this YAML I'm talking about, it's a YAML. Now your engineers have a clear spec to build against. They do not guess. They do not set the speed limits to crawl. They execute decisions that leadership already owns. So everyone's cleared. And here's what I've learned from over a decade of running these facilitation sessions First for brand and rebranding strategies and web design, and now for AI governance. When governance gets set by IT without the design step, something predictable happens. The system is compliant, it's up and running, but, and by the way, nobody's getting sued, right? That's good. But then someone says, this experience sucks. The answers are mediocre. The tone is flat. The customers are not impressed. And then what happens? So you've got it set up and you're all happy, right? No one's getting sued. And then leadership, eventually, weeks, months, maybe a year from now, they start asking, why did we bother? And then 6 months later, they come back and they want to design the experience they should have designed in the first place, right? Except not, because it's like a house you bought. You're living with it, and the mountain view's right there, except there's a wall there blocking the view. There's no windows when they should have added a window, right? It's so obvious when you're in that experience, and there's no need to build all this stuff when you know you're still going to end up with these collisions. So now you're redesigning a system that's already built, right? Already contracted, already embedded, and it's going to be a mess. So that's going to cost 3 times what it would cost to do it right the first time. So don't do it the expensive way. Design it first and build it second. And this is the actual architecture. 4 layers. Bottom layer is your workflows, the marketing bot, support bot, all that. This is what engineers are already building. They are good at this. 1 layer up is the enforcement gate. Before any output leaves the system, it passes through this checkpoint. It forces data boundaries, blocks policy violations, and produces an evidence receipt for every single output. And then 1 layer above that is the control plane. That's your mission control. That's basically your dashboard, right? Refusal rate, groundedness scores, cost per output, escalation queue. This is where a non-technical leader can look inside the machine like a glass box instead of this black box and tune the system and optimize it. It sounds like website design, right? You're going to optimize your AI. At the top is leadership logic, and it's extracted decision rights, the risk appetite, the permissions, prohibitions, escalation rules. This is the document that tells the gate how to behave in every scenario. You can buy excellent tools from the bottom 3 layers, but without the top layer, you have an empty engine, and that top layer cannot be purchased. It can only be extracted from the people in your organization who are accountable for the decisions your AI makes every day. And for the technical people, I'm gonna get a little nerdy for 1 slide. Most AI deployments operate in 2 states, yes or no. And a lot of engineers pretty much do this and give it the straitjacket. So the architecture I'm talking about, I use the 4-state logic: known, probable, unknown, and null. And this is how you prevent the AI from guessing when it should be escalating. And for the CISOs watching, this is deterministic governance, not probabilistic hope. Known is full speed. Govern, it's a yes, right? The AI knows the answer and has authority to act. Probable is confidence weighting, conditional approval. The AI has a fairly sure idea, but it flags it for review if it falls below a certain threshold. Unknown is a circuit breaker that commands and demands that a human review is required. The AI does not know and stops. Instead of making something up, it routes it to a human, right? So the AI now has boundaries. It was explicitly told not to cross. And the middle 2 states are really where real business decisions live, aren't they? That's where nuance lives. And that's exactly where a binary gate fails, okay? And by the way, is this interesting? Are you guys feeling this? Sorry, I got a little nerdy there for some of you. Maybe I lost some. 1,
Lots
yes.
of 1s, yes.
Okay.
Feeling it.
I want to feel you guys, right? So this is the pipeline that powers everything I just showed you. On the left, decision rights. That is the facilitated session. I get your leadership team in a room and extract the qualitative logic. What is the AI allowed to do? What it must never do? What happens when it is uncertain? This cannot be purchased from a vendor. It can only be pulled from the humans who are accountable for the outcomes. And the middle is a decision architecture. This is my work. This is the YAML that I hand off to IT. I take everything that came out of that session and translate it into structured, machine-readable rules and decision hierarchies. So this is the blueprint your engineers build against. Without it, they are guessing. And on the right is the actual decision gate they're going to build. This is the automated enforcement layer. It executes against the architecture at machine speed. Pass or block, every output gets a receipt, every decision is traceable. You cannot buy the left panel, you cannot skip the middle, and the right panel is empty without both, okay? So most organizations are doing this in the wrong order. They buy the tool, they add the gate, then months into a straitjacket problem, they finally start asking for leadership what rules should have we done, and how should we have done this in the first place, right? So here's the path forward. Get leadership logic, get the decision makers in the room, and define the boundaries, right? Your intent values, your red lines. And then step 2 is the control plane. You deploy the observability layer before turning on the hard gates. And watch what your people do when you do that. They're going to learn a lot of things. They're going to help optimize that with you. And then step 3 is an enforcement gate. Build secure governed connections to the data your people are trying to access anyways. And step 4, AI workflows. Now you can turn on the gate, but it is set to your strategic speed, not the engineer safety default. And every step you skip at the front, you pay double in the back. So don't forget that. And so when your board member asks, how did you make that decision? Or a regulator sends a letter asking for documentation, your legal team needs to know what the data system you use for the specific recommendation, right? It needs to be able to defend itself. And in a black box system, you're going to panic. You're going to dig with your engineers through logs and chats and everything. And 5 weeks later, nobody has a complete answer. And that's called reconstruction. And that's not a fun place to be in. In a glass box system, you pull up a receipt. The receipt shows the exact rule that fired, the data source, the confidence level, whether the output was modified, who reviewed it and when. 5 minutes to answer, not 5 weeks, right? And every time you use that receipt to tune a rule, you make the system smarter. Every connection is a data point. Every escalation is a lesson, and it keeps feeding on itself. So the glass box is not just visibility. It's the feedback loop that makes your AI continuously better. So this is like a rough of a dashboard of what it could look like. I can't show my clients real dashboards, but this is a ballpark. It's not a status report, by the way. This is a margin control panel, okay? Top row, 4 numbers. Collisions prevented, 47 in the last 30 days. These are moments where 2 AI systems were about to contradict each other. And the gate caught it before a customer saw it. Every one of these is a potential Alex situation that never happened. Your brand alignment score. Now, here's one thing. People always talk about branding. I think branding's been kind of ignored by leadership. It's like, how do we measure it? It's like so, it's not quantifiable. I really believe that branding, thank you, Steve, nice dashboard, thank you. I really believe that brand now has a metric. Why? Because AI can actually enforce it. What was in the old days? It was a human. It was a brand strategist going like slapping your hand, you're off brand, you're off brand. Forget it. The AI is going to do this in real time. And it's not slapping your hand. It's just kind of guiding you. And the simplest way to explain this is if you ever played with Canva, what do? You set up your colors in Canva. And once you do that, you don't have to think about it anymore. And you're just in a playground making designs, and they're all on brand because you did that setup to begin with. This is the same thing for your messaging, for your laddering down from marketing to sales. Like, what does that look like? And what does the handoff to the actual conversion look like? All that can be controlled now, right? So this is the future, folks. I know it. And this measures how closely your AI outputs match the voice, tone, and rules the leadership define in the charter. And believe me, you're gonna, once you get this governance stuff set up, you're gonna be 100% focused on what? What do you think you're gonna be focused on once this is set up? All these problems are gone. What do you think we're gonna focus on? I'm just curious if anybody knows the answer. Sales, yeah, that's one. What else? I'll give you a key, Terrence. What gets you sales? What gets you sales, and what makes operation flow? Think of the business model canvas, how that's designed. Marketing, you're getting warmer, right? It's brand. It's brand. So because we think about websites today. What are we doing? We're always talking about make it more personable, what we're fighting so hard to make this digital wallpaper, your website, into the most human experience possible, and yet it's just digital paper. We now have an AI that can talk. It's experiential. Are you crazy? We're going to be designing AIs that are going to make people feel so good. It's going to be like the movie Her, but without the crazy part, right? But we're going to be able to have that persona captured. You're going to be polishing the persona of your AI the way Progressive uses Flow for 20 years and spends billions of dollars. Why? Because it works. Customer personality, it works. So every AI decision generated a receipt. That means that the board asks why. They don't ask like, about the AI. They now understand where everything's going. They understand the big picture now. You pull out a packet, 5 minutes done. You estimated savings, 127,000, 30 days. And so, and then below that, you can see the circuit breaker, all systems normal, and the live feed, of flagged interactions, showing exactly what happened, which channel, what risk level, whether it was blocked or escalated, and who owns the decision in real time. A dashboard on top of ungoverned workflows is a Ferrari without an engine. So this dashboard has the engine because the decision rights were extracted from leadership, translated into architecture, and reinforced by the gate. That is why the numbers are real and not decorative, okay? And here's the part that nobody talks about. Governance is not a brake. It doesn't slow you down. It's a supercharger. Think about when you drive. If you didn't have any brakes, would you drive 80 miles an hour? No, you would drive 5 miles an hour because you don't have any brakes, okay? You drive 80 miles an hour on a sharp curve because you have brakes. So companies that build decision architecture are now just avoiding the risk. They are building a compounding advantage. They're going beyond just the risk. That's the boring part. Who cares? Like that's table stakes. Every decision the system makes gets logged. Every correction makes the rules sharper, and every quarter the system knows more about your brand, your customers, and your risk profile than any human could ever retain. And let's not even talk about, we're not even talking about the corporate hippocampus, which I forgot to add that slide, but when people leave, like all this knowledge leaves the corporation. No, the AI is going to keep it. Like we don't have to start from scratch every time someone leaves and departs the company, right? So the companies that start now will have years of compounding intelligence by the time their competitors even begin. So this is not a 12-month transformation. It's really a posture you adopt and a muscle you build. You start light, you prove it, you scale what works. The gap between companies that build this now and the companies that wait gets wider and wider every quarter. So 6 things that you now know. The workflow is the unit of value, not the tool. Collisions are inevitable paths of a handful of tools designed for them. Governance is architecture, not paperwork. Receipts turn fear into speed. Employee experience is adoption. Without it, you get organized resistance. And the shadow ledger exists in every organization running ungoverned AI, okay? So here's exactly what comes out of this engagement. Assigned constitutional charter, defining red lines, permissions, and obligations, a risk appetite rubric, 1-page department by department. So think of it like you create your brand. Think of a brand again. You create your visual identity, you create your messaging, all that stuff. And then you use that as a template. And as you move to each department, you might customize it per department, which is fine, right? But you need to start with like, what are we trying to do as a company first? Because you need that vision. By the way, all these things that, again, felt what's the point? What's the point of vision and value? Who cares? They become more important because AI loves that kind of stuff. Oh, your North Star, that's good to know. Oh, what is your bottom line? That helps with the red lines, right? Where are we going in the next 5 to 10 years? All that becomes so important because the AI can actually help you get there. So you get a collision map showing every piece your workflows will contradict each other, an evidence schema making every AI output traceable and auditable, and a decision architecture specification your engineers use to build the enforcement gate, the dashboard, and the tuning interface. So this is not vendor specific, by the way. This is, you can use any models you want. You're not locked into any one platform. And that package turns an empty engine into a value engine. If you are one of the few that are, Steve, this is for you. If you are one of the people experiencing that, you can scan this code. You're not in this room because AI is new. You know what you're doing, but you're here because you're accountable for what comes next. And right now, the most expensive problem in your organization or your client's organization is not on any report. It's not on any line item. It has no ticket number. So this is the shadow ledger. Every AI system operating in your name, every workflow making customer-facing decisions. The executives who run this assessment do not find theoretical risk. They find specific workflows with names running right now, and they have no constitutional limit on what they can promise. So that might be helpful. And if you want to get into the full architecture a little more, the book is called The Brand Experience AI Operating System. It covers everything. I believe that scan code takes you to the first chapter if you want to download the first chapter and read it. It's on Amazon. But this is what it looks like when the decision architecture is in place. You walk into the boardroom and someone asks, why did your AI do that? And instead of panic, instead of 5 weeks of forensic reconstruction, you pull up a receipt and you answer in 5 minutes. Your engineers build faster because they have a clear spec. And let's not forget the fact that you now have an opinion. Now people are going like, IT just figured out. They have no idea what IT is doing. It's a black box, right? That's a problem. Think of the front end design again. You can now say, oh, the website's built, and you can look at the front end design and say, well, that's off. We agreed to this. I want leadership to be involved. I want them to be able to say, Thanks, Steve. This is what coherence feels like, and it compounds every quarter. And remember Alex, Friday afternoon, 3 bots, 3 promises, 1 customer, $35,000 of paper over collision that will happen again tomorrow. This is the process that she needs to get through, because she'll never get past that until she does. So do not let your Friday end like hers. And if you want to reach out to me, that should be my linked tree. Okay, so how was that helpful, folks? What did you think? Any questions? Alex, do you have any questions right now from the group?
There was one question from Nate. How do we actually get the AI to follow the 4 rules? It seems like it forgets and takes liberties beyond its instructions.
Yeah. So understand that when you upload a PDF, that's our desperate attempt to do that, right? This is different. It's almost like you're building I mean, there's various ways to do it, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an IT person, but I understand it pretty well, and which is probably a local LLM that you have that has all your stuff that's secure, and that way you don't want any outside stuff touching it, and that can manage the gate. And it gets technical, of course, but these are things that exist already. It's literally, the tools are there. It's literally waiting for you to tell it, like the HubSpot platform. It's like, okay, here's all your containers for your content, and now you're like, oh, I have to make all this content. Now you have to make all these decisions, and it's all about the decision architecture that gets pulled out of that session that informs the technical part that we're talking about. Any other questions? Nicole, extremely helpful. This is something no one is talking about. Right now, everyone is so focused on how quickly we can build the systems and workflows without thinking about this aspect. Nicole, absolutely right. It's coming. I'm a little early to the market. They have not experienced many have not experienced the pain I'm talking about. But I would say companies with 300 employees or more, there was a stat I saw from the group. I think it was in December, and I looked it up. Like it showed that everyone kind of gave up on AI, but the companies with 300 or more employees were the biggest drop. It was like a black and white difference. And why? Because there's more departments. There's more departments not talking to each other. There's more collisions happening, and they're not able to put this together. So if you're a small brand with just like one or even a few workflows that are not touching each other, you may never need this, and maybe you're fine with what you have. But if you want to scale it out, and the most classic is the marketing, sales, and support, because they're talking to the same customer but in 3 different ways and 3 different stages, right? They're a different stage in the customer's in the brand stages, right? So that has to be figured out and cleared out before you put anything together. And let's not forget that your data needs to be vectorized and cleaned up, and that's another part. When you really start to scale this, you're gonna have to get into data. But for me, I think that's exciting, because I think for 25 years we've always talked about data, and what was the problem? It was always attribution, right? It was always that, well, the problem is that humans can't look at millions of lines of data, and even with processing with these tools, it's always hard. And AI can look at data and vector and even unstructured data and figure out what's going on pretty rapidly, which is amazing. So there's a lot of interesting scenarios that are going to start to happen when we start to build this foundation of the stage B, and as we move towards stage C. Hi, Nicole. You have a question? Oh, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, though, on what you said, Alan. I am really enthralled with everything you discussed today, and I've been working on workflows. Really, that's where I'm focusing, is on the agentic AI portion. And I honestly wasn't even thinking of this whole collision possibility. And the way I look at it, even for a small company, and I primarily, I work with a lot of nonprofits and then small businesses. And if I build a whole sales marketing, workflow, a whole process, if you will, and there's a collision in there, a $35,000 mistake can be devastating for a small business. Where Absolutely. A large company, they may be able to eat that cost. And so what you showed today, I mean, it really has me, looking, because as I'm working with these small companies, I start out with, let's solve a problem, right? And you come up with the solution, but pretty soon you're solving more problems. They like, this one worked. Okay, let's do this. And I hadn't really been looking at it from the way you've discussed today. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I realize you're an early adopter, but I think we all need to be early adopters of this as we're building these workflows. Do it in the beginning and not have to go back and correct the mistakes.
If you go back to my my podcast episode with Chris, several times in the podcast, he was like, this was all new to him. It was all news to him. And I get it. And I wrote the book because I saw some of the problem, and I realized that people couldn't scale AI at enterprise level. And I was just curious about that. And I always look at enterprise because they have all the money and all the research. And it's like, oh, I'm going to start with that. And then how can I like retrofit it? And really my market is more mid-market, because enterprise have their, their big three strategies and SailPoint and all these companies, but mid-market is going to need this, and they won't have the luxury of what enterprise has. But to your point, SMBs will need it too. And there's people talking about like, oh, we're going to see a future. We're going to see companies with 1 to 5 people competing, making $100 million in revenue because you can have a bunch of smart people leveraging AI and bots to create a workforce for them if they know what they're doing. And they're still going to have the same problem. And so they're going to need to do this architecture as well if they want to scale it up. And thanks for your input. Anybody else have any questions? Alex, you there?
For a minute, I was just about to come off and see if everything's okay. It was probably me. It just says my internet connection is unstable. Nothing in the chat at this moment. Okay. I did drop the feedback form. I imagine it's positive feedback based on what I'm hearing so far, and otherwise it is one after the next hour. So I think, amazing job, and thank you all so much for participating. Is there anyone else that wants to share comments, questions, concerns, queries?
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the nice comments.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Yeah. No, I know I gave you guys some things to think about. Just chew on it for a minute. Think about it. Read the first chapter of the book. It goes, believe it or not, it goes even deeper in what I'm talking about. And you'll understand all the work that we eventually will need to do. This is going to be a whole thing. It's going to be a whole, look, marketplaces are going to be coming out soon, right, for all this. And we don't want to be just another vendor selling tools like everybody else. This is going to actually make you guys stand out and sell in a different way, in a meaningful way. And it's also going to protect your clients along the way. And they're going to love the fact that they can be involved in the process. And it's not like this black box, like, oh, just figure it out. I think they like that in the beginning and they hate it later, versus like, oh, we have to do a process. And then they go, oh, wow, this is great. They understand it immediately, right? So again, thank you for your time, and hope to see you all soon on another talk.
Thank you all so very much. Please, I dropped the link again to the book for the recommended chapter. I'm just dropping the feedback form as well.
And you know what? I think you're using a different. Let me do it right now. I think.
Oh yes, can you send the one that has the actual chapter, and then otherwise, with it, when the video recording of this, right here. When the video recording of this is posted in Circle, I will also be updating all the resources provided. Yep.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. I just dropped the chapter for everybody. And thank you all so much. Take care. Stay safe out there.